take it from here.
Great. Record. Nope. There we go. Are we recording? Yes, we are. Great. So this is a meeting of the Cultural Council for the town of Amherst. Due to suspension of certain open meeting laws, this group is able to meet by Zoom. At this time, I'd like to thank everyone for their service and recognize Julianne Applegate, the chair of this group, and take it away, Julianne.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Angela. All right, I will start off with our roll call just to make sure that everyone's audio is working, and I'm so pleased that we have a quorum. Awesome. Okay. Evelyn,
I'm here.
welcome back, by the way.
Thank
Cody.
you.
Are you muted? I can't hear you.
I'm here.
Thanks. Eleanor.
Oh.
Thank you. Bill
Here.
and Rachel.
I'm here.
Excellent. Okay. Eleanor, where are you? Are you still down south?
No, I'm right back up north as of very recently.
Okay. Okay. And Christy, by the way, is running late, so she should be here in a moment. So we'll be all set. Okay. So there's Christy. Awesome. Do we have audio for you, Christy?
Oh, sorry.
Fine.
Here I am.
It's great. Angela literally just put us together.
Oh,
and
really? Oh, okay.
yeah,
Phew.
yeah.
Sorry.
So
I
it's been-
couldn't get out
You're
of another.
just in time. Okay. So well, Happy New Year, everyone. It's great to be back with you guys. Thank you all for giving some thought and sending me your thoughts on which grants we could potentially look at reducing. So we're gonna do this as a straight up kind of look at the numbers thing. And as I keep reminding you guys, my background's more as a fashion designer, so numbers are not my thing, but sometimes I have some interesting ways to look at them. So let me just see if I can find real quick. I think if I share here and then I go to the correct tab here, right? What are you guys seeing? Are you seeing reduction methods? Woohoo!
Yes.
All right. So I'm gonna go right into this. So where we were with a flat reduction across all grants to get down to the 60,000 that we have for granting would have been to apply almost a 22% reduction to all the grants. Okay. So there were 9 grants where there were more than 4 folks, and we only had 7 folks commenting because Do Kim didn't join early enough to really go through all of the grants with us, but we're happy to have him. So there were 9 that would have been, had it come to, say, a vote, 9 grants that, we had 4, 5, or 6 folks saying, I think we need to reduce this one. So I looked at, if we just looked at those and reduced them by 30%, so I figured it had to be at least more than 22%, right? Because we were starting at taking 22% from everyone, right? So at 30%, we'd still have to take 16% from everybody else other than those 9. If we look at those same 9 grants and take 40%, we are still taking almost 14% from all the other grants. So then I looked at what if we expanded it from 4 or more to at least 3 council members making a comment about it. And that really didn't change it, to then let those grantees keep 30% and add some more. So then I looked at it and I said, well, what if I took a tiered approach where the grants that were flagged, we didn't have any grant flagged by all 7 of us, by the way. So that was super interesting. But we did have several that, 6 out of the 7 said, let's look at this one. So I started looking at what if we took a tiered approach. So the ones where more folks were agreeing with reducing it, we took those down by 45%. And then 5 folks looking at it, 40. Can you see the numbers clearly? So I don't have to read all of them. And then the one that's a little funny here was what I did for just one person was dropped that down to 10% rather than keeping it at 20, because it just seemed like if it's just one person that's looking at that grant, there really isn't much support, but maybe there is something to it. And with this approach, that would mean that the remaining grantees would have to take a cut of roughly 5.5%, which really, they shouldn't feel much at all, right? So any questions about my crazy mathematics?
No, I appreciate the thought you put into this, though. I wouldn't have thought about it this way.
Yeah, you let a fashion designer do math, you're going to get something different. And clearly there could be other approaches, and we can look at where this is for, which grants got impacted in a more specific way, but I really wanted to keep it just very quantitative here. Because really when we were talking about doing an across all grant reduction, that's a quantitative solution, but there is some nuance. And I think there is a lot of meaning to where there were 6 of us or 5 of us, who were saying, hey, why, did we assign so much to this grant? And of course, after learning more about all the other grants, there is some different thinking once you know more. So
One quick question about the last
mhm.
option, just to clarify. So when it says 6 at 45%, do those numbers mean that's the number of council members who voted for that, or that there are 6 grants that would be cut at 45%?
Yeah, and it's not strictly voting, because we're going to do the voting all on the final slate. I think we might be here for the 3 hours if we went one by one, or we might not ever go home. Yeah, so this is 6 out of 7 of us flagged. And so those would be reduced by 45%. If it was 5 out of the 7, it's just 40%. If it's just 4 out of 7 of us, then 35%.
Do you have, no worries if not, because you put so much work into calculating all of this, but do you have any numbers for how many grants fall into each of those categories? Like for
Yeah,
instance,
so I didn't do the final count, but if you look at it here, as far as there were 17
listed
out
by
of all of our grants that had either 3, 4, 5, or 6 council members saying we should reduce them.
I see,
So
and then
as far as how much were the 1s and 2s, I count those up real quick.
no worries.
Hmm?
You don't have to do that. I was just, you're right that gives me a good rough idea of how many. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that might, just eyeballing it here, it might put us closer to like almost half the grants are then impacted somewhat.
Right.
But it did seem pretty equitable to me, and I think it also serves to make sure that some of those category differences that we're looking at, right? Because we were able to go back as individuals and think about categories and everything else. So,
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
sure. Yes, Rachel.
First of all, thank you so much for doing all the math like that. So my question is, with the 9 grants listed by 4 or more council members, were they mostly full grants? Do you remember?
Good question.
Like
I
the vote,
can,
we
yeah, I
had
can.
initially said we will fully fund their request. Is a majority those grants, those applications? if you remember.
Great
just to-
question. And, you know, I'm happy to go through, let's start with the first 9. I'm happy to mention those specifically by name. So, Amherst was never silent is one of those. And yes, this is a reduction, of that we were trying to grant them the whole $2,000. Gallery A3. No, that was not a, there was no full award there. They applied for $6,656, and we were originally trying to grant them 3,325. Continuing on, the Amherst Auto Harp Workshop. Again, no, this was not, we weren't trying to grant them the full $2,050. We were previously at $1,025. So we were at half already. The Amherst Cinema grant, again, in this case, yes, we were actually trying to grant them the full amount of 2,500. Moving on, Arcadia Players, their 35th season concert. No, we were not trying to grant them the full amount. They asked for 2,000, and we had originally looked at 1,500. And I can only imagine that, you know, this one with all of the discussion around classical music, and various types of classical music, and just having, you know, trying to balance out things in the community. There was quite a lot of that. Okay. I Was a Hurricane. No, we weren't trying to grant them the full amount either. They asked for 5,000 and we were at 2,500. The Spring Klezmer Carnival at the Drake. That one, yes, we did try to grant them the full 2,000 that they requested. We're almost to the end of the list here. Wednesday Folk Traditions at the Porter Phelps Huntington. In that case, no, we were not trying to grant them the full amount. They had requested 2,000 and we had them at 1,250. And the last one out of those 9 was the Amherst Global Village Festival. And in that case, we were trying to grant them the full amount.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And if you want to know which ones fall into which of the categories for that last option, it would be Amherst Cinema and I Was a Hurricane. Those 2 had 6 council members looking at them for reduction. Should we go on and talk about which one had 5?
Yes, please.
Is this useful? Okay. And the ones that have 5 are Amherst Was Never Silent, Arcadia Players, and then that's it for only 2 that had 5. And then the ones that had 4 are Gallery A3s, the Auto Harp, Amherst Cinema, and the Spring Klezmer Carnival.
Did
And
Amherst Cinema have 6 or 4? I don't know why.
let me go back and look again. I might be getting confused. Okay, let me do the last one at the bottom, which was the Amherst Global Village Festival had 4. Okay, so Amherst Cinema definitely had 4.
Okay, got it. Thank
Yep.
you. So the two that had 6 were, I was a hurricane
I
and
was a hurricane and it's listed as occurring at Amherst Cinema, but yeah.
got it. Okay.
Okay, and then the other one was the Wednesday folk traditions.
Okay.
So maybe we can go around the room and see at this point, can each of you say like which of the methods here might make the most sense to you?
I'll start. The one that makes the most sense to me is the 40% reduction to the 9 grants.
Mhm.
In my mind, keeping the grants that we cut above the quorum line seemed like it made sense to me.
Mhm.
And it also seemed to not greatly, but the number of grants that it impacted seemed to be less than other options, with the exception of the one above it, of course. But
Mhm.
trying to balance those two things, but that's what makes sense to me.
And you said that cutting them by which percentage?
The 40%
The
reduction to the
40%.
9 grants.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
gonna have to start calling.
I was
Go ahead.
originally going to say the 30% reduction to the 17 just to spread it out a little more, but I actually I'm moved by that argument of keeping it above the quorum or just the 4 or more council members being compelling. So I would agree with Bill about the 40% reduction to the 9 grants.
Mhm.
I think I am also interested in the 40% reduction. I'm curious to see what remaining grants there are for the 30% reduction, but I think I'm leaning more like 70% towards the 40% reduction to the 9 grants.
Okay. And I mean, it's only 8 more grants that we haven't discussed. So to that end, we could discuss which those would be for the 30%. On the other hand, what was really kind of telling to me, is and this 30% with the 3 or more council members, it was just looking at trying to spread it around, right? But what was interesting is spreading it around at that level really didn't help the other grantees because, 0.1% isn't a hill of beans difference to them, right? So those other 8 grantees are really taking a hit in that scenario, compared to how it would be across the board for everyone at 40% for those 9 main grants where we had more than a quorum, looking at those. And well, I don't love having to take, almost 14% from everyone. That's still a lot. It's a lot more doable in my mind, my fuzzy math, than taking 22% from everyone. I don't know why, but it seems like that's almost a quarter, I'd like it to be a smaller amount, but this is where we are. All right, who haven't we heard from yet?
I agree with Bill. I think the 40% to the 9 grants is what I would vote for.
Okay. Oh, Cody, you had your hand up and I couldn't tell because I was screen sharing.
Yeah, I'm on board with that third option.
Okay. I think Rachel, are you the only one we have not heard from here?
Yeah, I'm fine with that because I think when I was proposing at the beginning to cut everything by, I think in my email to you was between 13 and 14%, right? Too.
But you're
And
better with numbers than me. Like I
no,
was
I
okay.
just but I
Oh
hadn't
my
worked
God.
out what the reduction would be on the rest. So that's why I was curious to hear about those 9 grants. And so I'm sorry, this was a few weeks ago, but did we each send you up to 10 or up to 20 that we wanted to?
I asked that everybody send me at least 10
Okay,
because,
right.
I felt like, we should each be able to do the due diligence to look at 10 of them and then I said it's okay to send up to 20 because, but I didn't want, at 20, people would have been like really forcing themselves to cut things they didn't want to cut. Right.
Right.
So a few people, s- sent more than 10, but again, at this point, I think having that little bit of flexibility, it's pretty clear to me now where we had 4, 5, or 6 people questioning the amount on these 9 grants, that's something that needs adjusting. There's no doubt about that then.
Right. So it's good to have gone through the exercise this way, I suppose, too, right? So that we are all kind of on the same page. So just, and again, I appreciate you kind of digging into the nuances. And so I would agree with that approach, the 40% reduction overall. And then just out of curiosity though, with the last scenario with D, E, and F,
Mhm.
those would have made up between those, they would have made up the other 8 grants, right? Like,
So, wait, let me look at it.
because you
So,
had nine for A, B, C, right? And then D, F would be the other 8. Is that correct?
so
It's okay. Yeah.
yeah, in the very last scenario, I'm gonna highlight. The
So
very
D,
last scenario, well, okay, let's highlight these. So
those are the other 8 grants. That's not the 9 of the 17.
the 3 that are the additional 8 to make up the 17 are I, there are 8 grants that fall into this 3 at 30%. And if we go with the 40% reduction overall, they're going to get reduced, just the 13.84% instead of 30%.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
But I'm in agreement with the consensus.
Yeah, yeah. In the back of my mind, I was really kind of looking to get all of these in to see where we really did have the consensus and where if it had come to a vote. And, the other scenarios are really just like in case, that 13.84 still just seemed too high. But I think this is equitable and I do appreciate the extra time folks have put into doing this. I to the extent that any grantees come back and have questions, they can watch this recording and I think we can all feel that, we've really made every effort here to ensure that it's been a fair process and that we've, to try to give them as much as we can. So with that, by the way, one great piece of news, I have not heard of any appeals or reconsideration requests. So that's great news. That means we can get on with the business of getting these approved and getting the grant funds out to the community. So that would be very good. Did somebody have a question? Okay. With that, I still have to look at exactly how the paperwork goes in. I'm still kind of trudging along here as treasurer as well. But we do need to allocate funds to the spring block party or the fall block party. I'm sorry, but I believe that we have enough money in our administrative funds and what we've been able to roll from year to year that, and I'm going to, if you give me just a moment, I'm going to change what I'm showing on screen here and show you kind of the final amounts that we'll have for each grant. And then also review with you what money the council kind of has in reserve. I just have to make some changes in this Excel doc that I'll change. Okay. Okay. Let me make sure I have the right thing at the bottom here. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing this and then share something else. Any questions before we get into this next part? All right. Wow, this shares very differently than what I'm used to at work. Okay. Okay. Oh, and this number is incorrect. This should be 50%. Okay. So basically, no, that's the same. The ones that are really in the darker color, those are the ones that are adjusted, those 9 grants only. You can ignore the ones that are slightly lighter. You know, I'm on the wrong tab. Hang tight. This is a problem with running all these versions, right? 1 second. I didn't know what you guys were going to throw at me. Okay. I have to find my way back to Zoom. All right. Okay, so it's only the dark pink ones that are adjusted, and we talked through all of those. Okay, so with this, we have local funds and assets that we can keep in reserve. We are able to set aside up to 5% of our state allocation for administrative expenses such as postage or publicity. And that amount, which we put into the annual report, was for $2,507, which is close to the amount that we've paid for the showcase stage the 2 prior years. So I would expect with inflation that we might need to have somewhat more than that. We don't have a lot of administrative funds generally, like we stopped printing the big panel books and went digital. We do have a couple $100 a year for our Adobe Sign account, but all in all, I believe that these administrative funds that we've put aside can go entirely to the block party, and then out of this additional money that we have here, we can take care of the DocuSign and potentially, I think we're going to need more for the showcase stage, perhaps as much as 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 more. Actually, I think they got 3,500 this year. But that would still give us some funds in reserve. So it's, why do we keep funds in reserve? We are able to retain funds that are either donated directly to us or other funds that we've accrued over the years, mostly from interest out of our account, our bank account with the town. Back when we were doing reimbursement funding as opposed to direct funding, the money sat there longer. So that money belongs specifically to Amherst Cultural Council, and it's different than our allocation this year from I'm drawing a complete blank. Mass. Gosh, what MCC? What is it called? What is wrong with me, guys?
Mass Cultural Council.
Yeah, Mass Cultural Council was, I guess, 53,000 and change. We had some funds that rolled over from prior years where grantees hadn't taken those funds. So that's how we got up to the 60,000 that we have to grant. But basically that, I think it's 53,800 all belongs to Mass Cultural Council, all of it. So anything that we don't give back year to year, they can actually take back and redistribute, which is smart. If you have a cultural council who's, not getting the money out to their community, then that can circulate back to MCC. But at the same time, because they can kind of take those kinds of funds back, I think it is important that we do retain some funds for the cultural council that the MCC can't require us to send back to them. And I just have to be particularly conservative about it, not being a finance person, frankly, and not knowing how it works. While it seems like it might have been nice to take some of this money so that we could not reduce our grantees across the board by a percentage, I don't know what it would do for the future of the council if there weren't funds in reserve and the various things that could or couldn't come up. So, any questions about this?
Makes sense to me.
So, any thoughts, questions, anything? I know this is the really fun thing to talk about money. Oop. Okay. Any questions about the amounts of the awards and where we are at with those? Anybody need to see anything further or in more detail? Okay. So I think I would like to make a motion to vote that we will make the awards per this grant slate that we have before us here. And that with that, we understand that these bright pink ones where we had a quorum or more, that we'll be reducing those by 40% compared to what we had initially hoped to be able to grant to them. And then we will apply an additional 13.84% to all of the other grants to get to the final award. And so that will get us to the 60,000 that we have to award. And then we will set aside 2,500 specifically for the fall showcase. And that leaves us with a little bit more than 5,500 in reserve for our other expenses and to allocate to the fall showcase should more be needed.
I second.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, I thought, I'm waiting for someone to third it. What is wrong with me? Oh, it's been a long first week of January. All right, so let me go ahead and take the full vote. Cody,
Yeah.
thank you. Evelyn,
Yes.
thank you. Eleanor,
Yes.
Christy,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
and I'm a yes because I made the motion. All right. Well, thank you all. That is our fiscal year 2025 grant cycle now all approved. I really appreciated serving with all of you on this. It's been a pretty tough grant year as they come and go, and some hard decisions, but I think there's a lot of wonderful stuff coming for the community.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very much,
you.
Julian.
Excited to see
Julia, for
them.
your leadership. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. With that, I think we should regroup by March, so sometime in March. So I'll be reaching out to get a meeting on the schedule for them. One thing that we absolutely must attend to is there are a couple things. One, looking at our local commitments that needs to be addressed again. Two, planning for the fall showcase. and being able to line up grantees to do that. And 3, leadership for this council, because they're kicking me out at, I guess, around June. So yes, we're thankful to have Eleanor as secretary, but I believe, Eleanor, you are probably winding things up as well.
Yeah, I'm graduating in May, so yeah, I'll be out of
Excited
here
for you.
too.
So we will need a secretary, a treasurer, and a chair going forward. So no time like the present, or March, we'll call it, to start working on all of that. And the other thing that I'll be working on is lining up, more candidates to start interviewing, because I think there are quite a few positions that are coming open. And I don't know if it was mentioned, but Matt did have to step away from the council, so his position is open. Wow. Well, cheers to all of you. Thanks for your hard work.
And you.
Yes,
Don't
and
be
you.
strangers between now and March. I can be stranger than most.
I hope you guys have a great rest of your night, and I hope you guys had good holidays. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.